everyone, and welcome to the 73rd annual commencement exercise for Calvin Coolidge Senior High School. I ask that you now stand for the presentation of colors. Star Spangled Banner being sung by Miss Amani Hopkins.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight left gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we walked were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the Ready? March time. March. Left, right here. March.
You may be seated. Good morning again. And I must say to you, I do appreciate the kind of support and respect that you have shown thus far. I ask that you continue in that vein and show our graduates the kind of respect that a commencement exercise deserves. We ask that you honor the dignity of this commencement ceremony. Often we have found that through the excitement of relatives, friends, and parents, we often want to show and display how proud we are of our graduates. During the calling of the names, we do ask that you show respect for others who are longing to hear their child's name called just as you will be happy to hear yours. So we do ask that you give that respect. At this point, I would like to introduce several members who are seated on the platform. For those of you who perhaps do not recognize me, I am Leonard Upson, the principal or headmaster of Calvin Coolidge Senior High School. On my immediate left Thank you. On my immediate left is Congressman Floyd Flake, our commencement speaker for the morning, Congressman Flake. On his left is the Chief Executive Officer, DC Public Schools, Julius W. Beckton Jr. Seated to his left, the Ward 4 representative, the DC Board of Education, Reverend Sandra Butler Truesdale. To her left is the Assistant Superintendent, Senior High School Division, Mr. Ralph Neal. On his left is the President of the National Honor Society, Calvin Coolidge Senior High School, Jamal Gilchrist. And on his left, our very own Mayor, Washington, D.C., Mayor Marion S. Berry, Jr. I have to share this with you. The class president, Rashid Darden, this was his role, but he pulled me. He said, Mr. Upson, I left my speech backstage. So he had to go get his speech. So the president of the class is Rashid Darden, and he'll be up. Here, come on, Rashid. It happens to us all. We get nervous, we get excited. He has been an outstanding class president. Seated to his right, class valedictorian, Ndidi Mbanefo. Seated to her right, class salutatorian, Chisom Ahaghotu. On his right, senior class vice president, Lakita Wilson. To her right, class treasurer, Christy Taylor. And seated on the end, senior class secretary, Stephanie Owens. I now present to you class president, Rashid Darden.
Good morning. It is my pleasure as senior class president to bring all of you greetings from all of us, the senior class of 1997. Throughout these past 4 years, and especially our last year in high school, we as a class have been given many opportunities and obstacles. Yet we have lived up to our motto of Optimus Maximus, the best and the greatest, by making it here today. We have successfully made it over our hurdles. We have ignored those who said that we would never make it. When just one of us thought that they couldn't make it to the end, there were 10 others who said, yes, you can. Our class has truly come together as a family. But we as the class of 1997 cannot forget our other families. We thank you for the years of love, support, and encouragement. Without our families, we could not have made it here today to stand as proud men and women, and in about an hour and a half, alumni of Calvin Coolidge Senior High School. Again, I would like to extend greetings on behalf of the class of 1997, and thank you for coming out today.
At this time, we will have our Mayor, Marion S. Berry, Jr., to present the Mayor's Scholastic Achievement Awards. Mr. Mayor.
To Mr. Upson, faculty and staff, mothers and fathers, aunts and uncles and cousins and nephews and friends, but more importantly, the 1997 graduating class of Calvin Coolidge Senior High School. I'm so proud and pleased to be able to participate in this great day for all you graduates. And let me just say, Reverend Flake, this class is a special class. I suspect that there are people who are graduating all over America, but this class is one of the most academically astute, academically ready and prepared group of young people graduating anywhere in America. Let's give them another round of applause. This class has gone through a lot. This class has seen friends and peers who started with them in the first grade are not graduate with them, drop out of school. This class has seen friends of theirs shot, and some of them have seen friends of theirs killed. This is a very special class. This class refused to say we won't make it to the end. This class refuses to say that we're not going to do our very, very best. And I think this class ought to realize that you didn't make it here just by yourselves. A lot of people help you to get to be where you are. And you ought to stand and thank all those out there who helped you to get to where you are. Class, thank you. Come on, give it up now. And those of you out there ought to stand and thank this class for making it to where they are. You ought to encourage these young people to do that. And this class recognizes this is not the end, it's the beginning. They realize that they are stepping out on untested grounds. But I think this class has decided to be eagles rather than sparrows. You know, sparrows fly low, fly in a bunch. Everything deters them. They'll turn back at the drop of a rain. But eagles fly high, don't they? Eagles see the goal way in front of them. Eagles refuse to say, I can't make it. Eagles refuse to turn around. And this is the Eagle class that's right here, graduated in 1997. We ought to be appreciative of that. And young people, life is not going to be easy. Life is no bed of roses, is it? It's going to be difficult as you graduate from this high school. But one thing you ought to remember is not that you get knocked down, that you get up that counts. When people say you can't, you say I will. People say you won't, you say I can. And if you ever had a doubt of tenacity and perseverance, look at me. There were those who say I couldn't come back in 1994 because of a strong faith in God and a lot of help from you all out here. We did it. So young people, you can do it too. Let nobody turn you around. Let nobody tell you just because you're from D.C., you can't make it. And so I see education similar to some advertisement on television. Education is like Exxon gas. It puts a tiger in your tank. Education is like Ford. It's a better idea. Education is like Dial soap. Aren't you glad you got it? Education is like Scotch tape. You might not see it, but it's working. Education is like Nike. It calls you just to do it. Education is like American Express. Don't leave home without it. Education is like Coca-Cola. It's the real thing. Education like Pepsi. And so I not only come to congratulate you, but I brought some money. As they say in Jerry Maguire, show me the money. Everyone doesn't get started making A's and B's, and it doesn't always make a 3-point or 4-point average, but they improve. So I have an award called the Most Improved Student in the 1997 graduating class, Asia Talafero. Her academic improvement was especially shown in her senior year. She's exhibited positive attitudes and initiatives, accepted to Historical Black College, Morgan State University. Like her to come forward. Where is she? Oh, she's ill? Okay, I will give you this $40 savings bond certificate to our principal. Give her a round of applause and I ask it. I'd like to ask Chisom Ahaghotu to come forward. No offense to you women, I've been going to a number of graduations and I very rarely find a male who's a salutatorian. So we ought to give him an extra round of applause for making it out here. Enrolled at Coolidge High School, obtained the second highest grade point average based upon calculations. He is going to attend Cornell University with a grade point average of 3.7897. Chisom, on behalf of all of us who know that you are an eagle rather than a sparrow, who care so deeply about you and who love you very much, I'd like to present to you the Mayor's Scholastic Achievement Award for 1997 for being the salutatorian for the 1997 graduating class of Coolidge Senior High School. And also, I have a $500 saving bond. I'd like to ask Ndidi Mbanefo to come forward. Ndidi obtained the highest grade point average. You intend to attend either American University or Catholic University to major in gene research and biomedical research. On behalf of all of us who care so deeply about our young people who know that you're going to fly high, you're going to be the very best that you can possibly be, I'd like to award you the 1997 Scholastic Achievement Award for being the valedictorian of your class, 1997 Coolidge Senior High School. And I brought with me a $1,000 scholarship award. Thank you very much, young people. Hang in there all summer, enjoy yourselves, and do everything you can to be the very best. Thank you, and God bless you.
At this time, our salutatorian, Chisom Ahaghotu, will present the welcome address.
The Honorable U.S. Congressman of New York State, Reverend Floyd Flake, the Honorable Mayor, Marion, Chief Executive Officer of D.C. Public Schools, Mr. Julius Beckman, the distinguished council member, Ms. Truesdale, other council members present, other distinguished guests, the principal, Mr. Upson, other faculty and staff members, the families and friends of the graduating seniors, and more especially the outstanding Coolidge graduating class of 1997. Good morning. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you to the commencement ceremony of pride of Coolidge High School, the best and brightest 1997 graduating scholars. Optimus Maximus, the best and brightest, is what we are celebrating this morning. Indeed, this is the end of our high school careers, but only the beginning of an even better, brighter, and promising future. Yes, it has been said that we are sitting at the brink of the 21st century, an era that promises Optimus Maximus, the best and brightest time this world has ever seen. But we are not intimidated by the challenges of the 21st century. The reason is simple. Our class is the best and brightest. We shall certainly rise up to the occasion and take our place as leaders of tomorrow. Once again, the great graduating class of 1997, I salute you. And to our guests, I welcome you once more to this august occasion. Thank you.
We will now have a selection from the Calvin Coolidge Concert Band, Director Mr. Benjamin Sands. Greetings being brought to you by General Beckton and Reverend Sandra Butler Truesdale. General Beckton.
Thank you, Mr. Upson. This is truly another beautiful day in the District of Columbia. And while the weather outside may or may not be good, inside it's a beautiful day whenever people gather with one thought in mind. And that is to honor, to speak of, think of our students. And that's where we're coming from, putting our students first. On behalf of the District of Columbia Public Schools, the administration, we welcome all of you to this momentous occasion. Congratulations to the parents. I'm sure there are times when you have serious doubt that this day will occur. You were on your knees, you're praying, you're asking for help in every quarter, but it's here. Congratulations to the faculty. I know there were times when you knew this day would not be here. When you came into the classroom, you asked yourself, why am I doing it? And then you looked at those youngsters, you saw the bright eyes, and you said, that's why I'm here. But most importantly, congratulations to the graduates, because you're the ones who did it. The mayor has laid down the gauntlet and saying where you're going to go, and there's no doubt about that. I am happy to say that you are joining an alumni to which two of our daughters belonged back in the 60s. And if you are just half as successful as they have been, you will do well. I have one driving thought to you youngsters, and I heard the mayor speak of it. Never stop learning. No matter what you do in the future, if you got it up here, no one can take it from you. And if you don't do anything else, believe in yourself, because that's what it's all about. Again, good luck to each of you. God bless, and congratulations.
Good morning. If we truly believe the statement that many of us make, children first, and these are young adults now, then I think that I should say to the students or to the graduates first, congratulations. To the graduating class of Coolidge Senior High School for 1997. To Congressman Floyd Flake, to Mayor Marion, to General Beckton, to Mr. Tony Upson, who is a dear colleague of mine, congratulations. I take this opportunity to bring you greetings from the people's representative. The people elected me in 1990 to represent the Board of Education and to represent the students. So I am real proud to be the people's choice. I also want to say to you this morning that generally when I come to the graduations in the past 6 years, I always want to say something that would be encouraging to our young people. But this morning, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you. I want to say thank you to you parents who have stayed focused on your children's education. I want to say thank you to this principal who has stayed focused on education through all adversity. I want to say thank you this morning to this faculty and to the staff of Coolidge Senior High School for staying focused on children's education. I take time out to say thank you to this class of 1997. for showing me the way, for showing me how to persevere. Because these children, these young people have persevered through critical times in education. And they have reached their goal. Excuse me. Please respect our children. Thank you so much, young people, for persevering through this struggle and obtaining your education and reaching your goals and your objectives and showing me how to persevere through hard times. Thank you again. This morning, the Ward 4 Board of Education takes the opportunity to award students who are most improved. When I started my tenure at the Board of Education, many of our children received awards, but not for their most improved achievements. The first person to receive this award is Mr. Jamerson Lee. Mr. Jamerson Lee. The second award goes to Asia Talfaro. The third award goes to a young lady who lives in my neighborhood, who has really persevered through some very difficult times. She did not know that I was considering her, neither did she know that I was watching her. This young lady's mother has been very ill this year, and it has been very difficult for her to complete her task in education. I will take this opportunity to award the Most Improved Award and Special Merit for Outstanding Achievements to Ms. Monique Wade. Incidentally, Monique is an artist. She is very, very good at what she does. And if there's anyone who knows someone who needs a good artist, she's the one. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would just like for you to know that the Ward 4 Board of Education generally has the opportunity to give scholarships. However, this year, we were not able to raise the kinds of dollars we would like to have. So what we are going to do is those three students, if they decide to go further in their education, we will be responsible for purchasing or at least supplying 50% of the dollars for their books for the first year. Thank you and congratulations.
I have the introduction of our guest speaker by the President of the National Honor Society, Jamar Gilchrist.
Good afternoon, parents, relatives, and friends. Today I will introduce to you Representative Floyd Flake. Representative Flake was born in Los Angeles, California on January 30th, 1945. Mr. Flake attended public schools in Houston, Texas. He received an undergraduate degree from Wilberforce University and has studied in graduate programs at Payne Theological Seminary and Northeastern University. In 1994, he earned a Doctor of Ministry degree from United Theological Seminary in Dayton, Ohio. Representative Flake was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1986 to represent New York's 6th Congressional District. As a senior member of the House Committee on Banking and Financial Services, Mr. Flake has been a fervent voice for urban investment strategies. He has consistently championed for the philosophy of marrying the strengths of the private and public sectors to improve the long-term economic fortunes and quality of life in these areas. Mr. Flake maintains that private sector involvement at all levels of public policy ultimately increases the economic viability and growth of urban communities. Mr. Flake has a broad range of professional experiences. He was the Dean of Students and University Chaplain at Boston University in 1976. He also served as the director of the Martin Luther King Jr. Afro-American Center at Boston University from 1973 to 1976. From 1970 to 1973, Mr. Flake served as the Associate Dean of Students, Director of Student Activities at Lincoln University. He has been a market analyst for Xerox and a sales representative for Reynolds Tobacco Company. In addition, Mr. Flake has served as a social worker for an early child development and Head Start program. Please join me in welcoming Representative Flake.
Thank you for the introduction and good morning. It is with joy that we come today to salute and to commend the graduating class of 1997 at Coolidge High School, and I think we ought to give them another hand. We cannot praise them enough for the level of this accomplishment. And another hand for you, the parents, because I know this is a day of great joy for all of you as you come today to see your young people graduate. To our Honorable Mayor, to the Chief Executive Officer, Julius Beckton, to all of those who share in helping to shape and mold these young people, the principal, the administrators, the teachers, the staff of this school, let's give them a hand, because without their guidance, we would not be here to celebrate on this day. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here. This morning I boarded a shuttle flight from New York in order to share in this occasion. I would have you to know that in New York, I'm also a minister, pastor of an 8,000 member church, and we have our own school, and we have our graduation today. And so I was trying initially, I thought I might cancel this and be there as my wife, who is the educational director, asked me the question, are you going to go and speak at someone else's graduation and not be here to speak at your own graduation? And what I decided to do, though, was I felt it was easier to find a replacement there than to find a replacement here. So here I am to speak for your graduation this morning. And of course, you will tell my wife that I was here so that I might be able to keep my marriage together and let her know that I did come, that I tried to do my best for you. And what I will do is try to get back if the votes are over early today and prepare her a nice meal so that I can kind of smooth things over. Some of you fathers, some of you parents know what it's like when you're in trouble, but I'm going to get out of this trouble with your help. This morning I'd like to speak from the topic, overcoming negativity. Overcoming negativity. On yesterday, I spent my morning in the largest municipal corrections facility in the United States of America, in Rikers Island, which is in New York, and I spent the morning in the juvenile detention facility. There in a room where there were 300 or more seats, over 2/3 of those who were in that room looked like those of us who are sitting here today. I'm overjoyed at this graduating class because I realize that many of them could have easily been a part of that growing population of young people who have made the wrong choices and therefore will spend a great deal of the best years of their life behind bars. And so I commend you this morning because I realize that you have had to have an overcomer spirit in order to be in the place where you are right now. But I would challenge you to understand, this is merely commencement. This is another step. This is a move forward. This is an opportunity to make some decisions about what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And the negative spirits that have tried to influence you, the negative forces that have tried to control you, the negative forces that have tried to tell you what to do and tell you what to do in ways that did not benefit you have not ceased. They are not overjoyed today at this celebration. They are not overjoyed that you come to a moment in your life where you are able to put on this cap and gown and say to the world, I may be black, but I am proud of the fact that because of the abilities that I have and the achievements that I've made, I can move on, I can go forward, I can demonstrate a level of excellence that the world will one day be able to look beyond my blackness, look at this mind and know that I am somebody who can make a contribution to society, make a contribution to myself, to my family, make a contribution to my race. We need to deal with the negativity that somehow seems to have engulfed us in ways that have forced us to believe that we must lower standards rather than raise them, that we can live in a society where we can change that which represents the essence of our being to a more negative position and posture and still be able to walk in this global society in a way that allows us to remain competitive. I would argue with you this morning that there are no bars that need to be lowered. As a matter of fact, if anything, we need to raise the bar. We need to make the challenge even greater. Persons like myself, who grew up in the segregated South, if going from first to second grade from one side of a schoolroom to another, second to third from one side to another, from the fourth to the fifth to the sixth from one side to another, because segregation did not allow us to be able to be educated with white counterparts. And on a bus 14 miles, driving by 3 white schools on the way to this little country school, but there were some teachers there, and there were teachers who had this in loco parentis idea. In other words, they treated us as if we were their own children. They made us expunge words like can't from our vocabulary. It was the days of corporal punishment in school, and therefore they could take a paddle out. They could spank us. They could make us lift our hands out. They could hit us there, or even they could twist our ears, they could pinch us, they could do whatever was necessary to get our attention. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. And although those days have passed, there is yet a reality that as you step out on the stage of life now, make your way as I look at the scholarship booklet and see that the majority of you are headed toward college. There will be no parent there to set the alarm clock for you or to wake you up in the morning. There will be some upperclassmen there who have been there for a long time and will never graduate. They are the first persons that you will meet. They will be the ones who will try to acclimate you to the campus and orient you to where the parties are, where you can go and get the stuff to get high. They are the persons who will try to tell you what you need to do in order to survive in the system. What you need to do is ask them the question, how long have you been here, and how long do you intend to be here? And rather than listening to them, make your decision about what you are going to be and what you intend to do in life. A college education is still the key that opens the door to the possibility of ultimately being competitive with other people in this society. Don't let anybody fool you. There is no easy way. There is no shortcut. Ebonics is not a shortcut. Rapping, when you took your SAT exam, there was no Ebonics section on it. When you take the GMATs, when you finish college to go to management school, or the LSATs for law school, or the MCATs for medical school, there will be no Ebonics section on it. People will not make determinations about what they are going to do for you based on your having lowered the bar and lowered the standard. You must then respond in relationship to those persons who are not a part of this graduating class, but relationship to those persons who all over the world seek to find seats of admissions into the great universities of America. And indeed, they are great universities. And even with the rollback in affirmative action, people like the mayor, people like Julius Beckton, those of us who are over half a century old can tell you that when we grew up, there was no affirmative action. And yet we were challenged to meet the same standards as everybody else of every other color. And so my challenge is to let you know today, whether there is affirmative action, rollbacks or not, you must take affirmative action as it relates to what you want to do with your life and make some decisions that project the best that you can possibly be by the choices that you have made. 4 things I'd like to leave with you this morning. First of all, let me challenge you to believe in yourself. Believe in your self-worth. Believe in yourself enough to have respect enough for yourself that you are willing to do those things which are necessary and appropriate to demonstrate a degree of excellence that all of you have been given, a degree of promise that God has placed within each and every one of you who sit here today. When I was a dean of students, associate dean of students at Lincoln University, and subsequently dean of students at Boston University, one of the things that I would do was make every African-American student come to see me before they could go to a job interview. I wanted to make sure that they understood that if you were interviewing with some of the great corporations of America, you had to look like the person that they were willing to hire. And so I made them come by me. And when they come by me without having appropriately gotten themselves together as it relates to their hygiene, come by me with these boots on, and I love these modern boots that we wear, Timberlands and all of the others that I have to buy for my children. I love the baggy pants, I love what you wear, but I want you to understand that when you go out into corporate America, you have to learn how to do role play. Role play starts when you get on the job. And the role play doesn't end until you get off the job. And what they used to say to me was, Dean, I don't understand why I should have to dress like that if I am going to try and get a job with these corporations. And I would say to them, you're going to interview with IBM, you're going to interview with Xerox, you're going to interview with General Motors. You're not going to interview to work in some mom and pop store on the corner somewhere, but they say, but I'm just trying to get myself a job, take care of myself, then I'm going back into the community. But while you are trying to get the job, you have to impress people, you have to have oral and verbal communication skills, and you also have to dress appropriately to demonstrate that you want to be a part of that corporation. When I joined Xerox, they took me through a series of about 5 interviews. And one of the things they told me in an interview was, if you want to work for this corporation, you cannot wear sports outfits. Everybody in this corporation must wear a suit every day. Now, I didn't have a problem with that, because I figured that if I was going to work for them, that 9 o'clock in the morning, it would not hurt me to put on a suit. 5 o'clock, I could take the suit off. I could be whoever I wanted to be after 5 o'clock. But between 9 and 5, I knew that my responsibility was to that corporation. And so my challenge to you is to believe enough in yourself, realizing that there will be those who will always tell you that you cannot make it. You're looking at a young man whose parents gave birth to 13 children. My parents went to the 5th and 6th grade. Me and my brothers rolled out roll-away beds every night into the kitchen. My other brothers rolled their roll-away beds out into the living room. My sisters slept on the bunk beds in one bedroom, and my mother and father, of course, had a room to themselves so they could make the 13 children that represent our family. And when I talked to my guidance counselor about going to college, because I used to run track at George Washington Carver High School in Houston, Texas, Dr. Beckton was the former president of Prairie View, and in those days, the African-American schools had to run their state meets down at Prairie View College. And when I graduated, they said, well, you can go to Texas Southern and run track, or you can make a decision about whatever else you want to do with your life. I made a decision to go to a school named Wilberforce, which is the oldest African-American college in the country. I'd accepted the call to preach at the age of 15, and I wanted to go to a college where, even though they did not have the athletic program, the one thing they did have was an academic program. The counselor said to me, and I'm talking about this negativity now, the counselor said to me that because of your parents' background and because of the fact that they don't have the resources to send you, you will not be able to go to college. Why don't you stay home and either go to college or get yourself a job here or even go to the military? I said, no, I'm going to college. They said, well, how are you going to pay for it? I went to college. I haven't come from a home where a mother taught us how to cook and wash and iron and sew. And I want you to know, brothers, that does not make you gay because you can do domestic things. And my children will tell you today, if they want to eat anything other than corn flakes and sugar frosted flakes, their daddy cooks and washes and irons and sews. And I want you to understand though, when I got there, 5 o'clock in the morning, I was in the cafeteria cooking breakfast for my fellow students. At noon, I was back serving the lunch line, and by the evening, I had the keys to the cafeteria after I had earned the right and respect for that. And by the time I got to my sophomore year and through my seminary years, the seminary was right next door, for 7 full years, I had the ability to work in that cafeteria. And in one year, my French teacher had a heart attack. An older lady in her 60s, when she had the heart attack, she was looking for somebody to move into her house. They would be able to live rent-free. All I had to do was cook and wash and iron and sew. And so I lived free, took care of her meals, took care of her beds, and I learned early on that if you're going to make it in the world, if you believe enough in yourself, you're willing to work hard enough for what you believe in, nobody can take it away from you. But it begins with a level of self-respect. When I went into the prison yesterday, some of the guys were doing what some of the people out here were doing earlier. They were making cat calls, they were howling out, they were making all kind of noises, they were trying to be as disruptive as they could be for the assembly program that we were trying to have. When I got into the middle of the speech and I began to ask them some questions about why they were there, only to discover that many of them were there because they lacked self-respect. They didn't have enough respect for themselves to respect themselves and therefore could not respect others, and because they could not respect themselves, nobody respected them. When nobody respects you, it's hard to make it in life. And so you must move beyond the negative choice of deciding that you're not going to respect yourself. You think it's cute, you think it's funny, you think that everybody's laughing at your jokes. Sometimes people are laughing at you because they know you're never going to be anything because you don't demonstrate any degree of excellence in your life. Second of all, you must have courage. You must have the courage to be able to make decisions, make the right choices. Sometimes they will be unpopular choices, but you have to make those choices anyhow. When I made a choice to go almost more than 1,000 miles away from home to college, my mother didn't understand it. The people in the church said you don't have to go to college to be a preacher. All you have to do is open your mouth and the Lord will speak for you. And I said my concern is not about the Lord speaking for me, but I want to be real clear that what the Lord has me saying is something that people understand. You have to have courage enough to make those decisions. We make decisions. Most of us who are successful in life have made decisions at some stage in our life that somehow separated us from our friends, separated us from our families, caused other people to react in negative ways to us. But I'm here to challenge you today to understand that even as they respond in negative ways to you, you have to keep on rising. You have to make your own determination about what you want to be in life. Have the courage of your convictions. Don't let anybody tell you that you have to be led by anybody else, that you have to follow anybody else. You don't have to be in a gang. You don't have to follow drug dealers. You can do things for yourself to demonstrate a degree of excellence that will allow you to succeed. Number 3, I'd like for you to develop a will to succeed. Now, I don't know who your choice was for the recent NBA Finals in terms of who ought to have won, but all of us who are followers of that great icon, Michael Jordan, it's the other Michael. You know, that's a strange thing about these MJs. You got Michael Jordan, you got Michael Jackson, you got Michael Johnson, all these guys. You know, I told my mom, I said, you know, I think maybe I got the wrong initials because all the MJs are doing pretty well. And all of us FHF seem to be, you know, trying to make it to the best we can in life. But you have to have the will to succeed. One of the things that I think those of us who noticed those games, and I didn't look at most of them until the last quarter, it was important for me to know what Michael was going to do in the last quarter. And he made up his mind, no matter what, that ultimately they would not be without winning this 5th championship. Somehow they were going to win as many games as they could. Even on that fifth game when he was sick, when it appeared that he would not even be able to play in the game. When he came into the stadium, looked like he was too tired to make it. He still got out on that floor. Not only did he get out there, it was probably his best game, more than 38 points. I come to tell you, young persons, as you are ready to graduate and go off to college, your will to succeed will be tested. There will be mornings when you will not want to get up to go to the 8 o'clock class, times when you will not find yourself even wanting to still be a part of the institution, a part of learning. You've got to make up your mind that I'm here. I'm willing to burn the midnight oil. I'm going to sit up as long as it takes, burn the lights as long as it takes. If I have a roommate that's got the music up too loud, I will find me a place where I can study. I will turn off that television, get off that goon box, make up my mind that I'm here to learn and that my parents are paying too much money out of their hard-earned resources for me to throw that money away. So I'm going to do the very best that I can. I have seen many of students, and I'm sure Dr. Benton would agree with me. I have seen many, not only seen many of students, but as an associate dean, a part of my responsibility was to determine which students could stay in the institution at Lincoln in particular, and which ones could not. We actually put students out who flunked out and told them, don't come back until your parents come with you, until you have a commitment to education. When I got to Boston University, I discovered something. Same kind of African-American students, yet with a greater possibility and probability for success. The fact that they were able to get into this kind of institution would suggest that they would have been major successes, yet many of them never graduated from the institution because we had an unwritten policy that you could not send an African-American student home no matter what the circumstances were. We took those students who came to us in the rough at Lincoln University. We produced some marvelous products. Students who left that institution went on to Yale and Harvard and MIT and other schools, got their graduate degrees. When I encounter them out in society today, they tell me one of the greatest things in their life was that they had somebody who took the time to challenge them to succeed as opposed to somebody who tried to make it easy for them. And so you have that will to succeed and understand that everybody who is a part of the institution will not necessarily believe that you can succeed. So lastly, I want you to have the faith to believe that you can succeed. If you don't have the faith, you will not succeed. If you don't have the faith, you will discover that negativity will overcome you in such a way that you will give up in this race. It is not easy, but it is a race that you must run. The Bible says that the race is not given to the swift, but it is given to those who endure until the end. This is not a sprint. This is a long-distance race. This is a marathon. And this is just the beginning stages of your life. So go to college. Enjoy your college life. Dance while you can. Do all of the things, play bid whist as much as you want to play bid whist and spades and card games. Do whatever you want to do. But when you've done all of that, get back into your books, learn as much as you can, develop the kind of faith that says, I am determined that no matter what the rest of the world thinks of me, I think enough of myself to believe that I can fly. I can rise above where I have come from. I can rise beyond those places that other people have defined for me. I believe I have the strength to be able not only to rise, but once I get to a certain plateau, to be able to soar. If you want life to be easier for you, you got to work on making sure that you build that foundation right now. And if you do it right, nobody can chop that foundation from beneath you. Nobody can take away from you that which you have between your ears. Nobody can put you in a subservient position. Nobody can make you submissive to them. You will have the power to say, I'm flying. And every time the negative forces try to pull you down, you always make sure of one thing. If they ever get you down, they can stomp you out. But if they have to rise up to try to reach to where you are, and you're rising higher and higher all the time, they may be, if they stomp you out, stomp your brains out, you can't function. But if they got to reach up, even if they cut your feet, you may have to limp a little bit, but you're still rising. That's what it's all about. You can overcome negativity. Thank you.
Congressman Flake, before you leave, I know you have to rush. Rashid Darden, the class president, as a token of appreciation for your time, certainly for your thoughts, your commitment to young people, and for your wisdom. We thank you very much for being here today, and we thank you for your words. From our concert choir director, Mr. Thomas Tyler. just so much talent in this class, so much. At this time, we'll have a representative from the Alumni Association to present an award, Mr. Neil Faulkner.
Thank you, Mr. Upson. First thing I'd like to do is to congratulate this fine class of 1997 and let them know that we'll be happy when they're ready to join us. They're eligible as of today. For the last 10 years, the Calvin Coolidge Alumni Association, which is 10 years old this year, has presented scholarships to graduating seniors as our way of encouraging them to join us and to move on. For those of you that don't know, the National Urban League president is a Calvin Coolidge graduate. And there are others in our community and across this country that have done as well, that are Calvin Coolidge graduates. This year, we are presenting 2 scholarships. The initial one is a service award, which is given in conjunction with our partner, Dollars for Scholars. And that award is going to Miss Christine Gaines. The second award is also a $1,000 scholarship, and it's going to Marie Preston. Thank you.
One of our counselors, Mrs. Helene Miller, will give you some highlights of the scholarship award winners. Mrs. Miller.
Good morning, distinguished guests and class of 1997. In an old African proverb, Marion Wright Edelman has used it often. Hillary Clinton used it in the title of her book. It takes a whole village to raise a child. The village of Coolidge High School is proud of its successes of its many children. In the beginning of the year, when it was suggested what my goal for scholarships should be, it seemed almost impossible. After all, I had never done this before, but with the help of the students who participated in the Scholars Club, on Project WIM, and the 10 by 10 challenge, as well as those students who followed through on mountains and mountains of applications, our goal was achieved. In fact, it was surpassed. To date, our class has earned over $3.9 million in scholarships and grants. And over 60% of the graduating class has been accepted to a post-secondary institution, and 10% are going into the service. I would like to thank the students and parents for their cooperation, the faculty for their many suggestions and ideas, Mrs. Jackson and Mr. Williams in the guidance department for their support, and Mr. Upson for the challenge. To the class of 1997, the best and the brightest, I charge you to always set goals and achieve more. To the Coolidge family, we are a team. Together, everyone achieves more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. I would just like to give you a little history on the significance of these scholarship awards. In the year 1993 was our first year at Calvin Coolidge as an administrative team. Graduation exercises that year, students were honored in terms of their scholarship awards. The total for that year was $387,000, and we thought that that was wonderful. You know, the kids had earned almost $500,000 in scholarships. The next year, we hired an individual, another counselor by the name of Myrtle Bennett, and I presented her with the challenge. I said, listen, we have got to do more for our youngsters. We have tremendous talent and scholarship in these students. We have to work harder. She said, I'll do my best, Mr. Upson. 1994 graduating class accumulated a total of $1.7 million. We were ecstatic. We just thought it was wonderful. We went over that $1 million mark. So I challenged her next year. I said, listen, now let's go for $2 million. 1995, $2.4 million. 1996, I thought we would never surpass this amount. Last year's class we thought was the greatest class ever in the history of the school. That class had a scholarship total of $3.7 million. This year's class, $3.9 million, and Mrs. Miller has said to me that she thinks before the summer is over, we will top $4 million. Give them a rounding round of applause. $4 million in scholarships. It's fantastic. At this time, the Assistant Superintendent for Senior High Schools, Mr. Ralph Neal, will make a presentation to the top 10 seniors. Mr. Neal.
Mrs. Truesdale, Mr. Upson, parents, members of the community, friends, relatives, and the graduating class of Calvin Coolidge Senior High School, 1997. It is a pleasure for me to be here this morning, and I have a distinct honor of presenting the top 10 students of Calvin Coolidge Senior High School for academic achievement. I'm asking Mr. Upson will please call their names in reverse order, and we have a certificate of academic excellence presented to them on behalf of Don Rees, President of the Board of Education, Julius W. Beckton, Jr., Chief Executive Officer, and Bruce K. McLaury, Chairman of the Emergency Transition Board of Trustees. At this time, Mr. Upson will call their name, and will they please come forward in reverse order.
Mrs. Truesdale will assist with the presentation. In position number 10, with a grade point average of 3.43, we honor Ms. Maxine Taylor. Position number 9, with a grade point average of 3.46, Marie Preston. Position number 8, with a grade point average of 3.5, Gwendolyn Plummer. That's 3.52. Position number 7, grade point average 3.59, Crystal Branton. Position number 6, grade point average 3.64, Charles Nichols. Position number 5, grade point average 3.68, Darlene Simmons. Position number 4, with a grade point average of 3.72, Lakita Wilson. Position number 3, grade point average 3.76, Karan Carroll. Salutatorian, Grade point average 3.789, Chisom Ahaghotu. And in the number one position, and I just say, be mindful that we're talking about grades that they started in 9th grade. These are academic averages that started in the 9th grade through 12th grade. Class valedictorian, grade point average 3.93, Ndidi Mbanefo. Those are our top 10 scholars. We salute them and congratulate them. Thank you, Mr. Leonard. A comment before we proceed. I will present the class for acceptance to Mrs. Truesdale, the Vice President of the Board of Education. And then we will have the students to come to receive their diplomas. We do ask your support. Congressman Flake talked about self-respect and the dignity and the respect of certain types of ceremonies. This ceremony certainly requires your assistance and your support, again, so that parents, friends, and colleagues can recognize, celebrate, and honor their graduates. We ask that you please comply with our request to show the respect for these students so that their names can be heard and their individuals can receive them in a like manner. We also have a professional photographer here who will take a picture of each and every graduate receiving his or her diploma. So we ask that you not come forward to take pictures because it will be disruptive and may disorient some of our graduates. Graduates, would you please stand? Friends, guests, and most importantly, graduates, Reverend Sandra Butler Truesdale, Ward 4 Representative for the Board of Education. I, Leonard A. Upson, Principal and Headmaster of Calvin Coolidge Senior High School. By the power vested in me, I do certify that the graduates standing before you today on stage have completed all requirements required by the District of Columbia Public Schools for graduation from the DC Public School System.
Headmaster, Mr. Anthony Upson, I, as your representative to the Board of Education, with the power vested in me, accepts the 1997 class of Coolidge Senior High School, and we give all of the power and rights vested to that class. The class of 1997 of Coolidge Senior High School.
Congratulations, graduates. You may now move your tassels to the right side. You are now officially alumni. Congratulations.
Taylor. Stephanie Nicole Owens. Jamal Gilchrist. Tiana Warren. Chanel Smith. Crystal Branton. Gwendolyn Lakita Plummer. Sharice Diane Budd. Carolina Raquel Miranda. Pamela Alicia Scott. April Lakeisha Scott. Charles M. Nichols. Olina Emilioni. Darian Smith. Lamont Wilson. James Ferguson III. Thomas Anthony Dempsey. Preston Percy III. Lakeisha Renee Owens. Sophia Lakeisha Terry. Karan Denise Carroll. Darlene Charity Simmons. LaQuanda Burgess. Maxine Taylor. Olivia Kathleen Pasima. Alicia Giles. Aquan Lomax.
Emmanuel Taylor. Ricardo Orlando Williams. Lamont Clayton Bennett. Randolph L. Spencer. Kamal Adisa Lancaster. Chance Burgess. Rocky Thorpe. Joseph Delaney Jr. Gerald Giroux. Rashad K.T. Richards. Dorcas Swanette Fields. Kiana L. Carter. Shanika Sharon Johnson. Sonia Agnes Staples. Marie Preston. Christina Michelle Baby Gaines. Simone Sharon Morgan. Stephanie Danielle Coger. Brandy Larissa Macmillan. Sean Jackson. Edwin Barber. Darren Omar Mott. Curtis Anthony Clark. Delonte William Matthews. Delvin Odell Johnson. Elijah Clay. Aristide Phipps. Kevin Dyson. Parney Tyrone Jenkins. Mohammed Mansouri. Robin DeMarca Athey. Kenza Nakia Carrington. Candace Andrea Howell. Amani Bria Hopkins. Tiffany M. Owens. Aisha Taria Glenn. Tia Quintella Moore. Autumn Hayes Minor. Jermaine Lavelle Lancaster. Althea T. Robinson. Lori Butler.
Williams. Janelle L. Davis. Akia N. Harvey. Alicia Cerise Robinson. Latasha Donice James. Nicole Cherie DeWitt. Clarisha Tamika Jones. Kenya Monique Lomax. Samaria R. Ross. Akpabio. Rhonda Marie Kane. Keisha S. Brown. Wait, Chantel Maria Rolla. Laurel Nicola Hovis. Christine Bradley. Margaret Jeanette Davis. Alvin Spencer Jones, Jr. Darnell Jackson. Lamar Jeffries. Clayton J. Robinson. Arthur L. Daniels IV. Joseph Pleasance. Ainyana Anyanwu. Kalamba Van Zunen. Sean Ellis Ruffing. Leonard Douglas Cobb, Jr. Thomas C. Alana. Arrington Russell Hughes. Brian Lucien Jones. Dewan Gibson. Rodney Jacob Hewlett. Decory Wendell Williams. Lamar Terrell Leonard. Nathan David Dugar. Sean Stanford. Nashia Tanike Barnes. Ezawan Ahaghotu. Antony Janae Everett. Latasha Yvette Murchison. Asia Tamara Taliaferro. Felicia F. Fuller. Charlene Logan. Tamisha Janelle Wall. Tia Shantae Gary. Christina M. Sidnor. Malaika Iman David. Yolanda Nicole Scott. Amanda Maria Hart. Evithia Shahida Brooks. Janine Renee Reardon. Marcia Patricia Smith. Sharkia Monique Danielle Barrington. Markia Chase. Danielle E. Allen.
There they are, the class of 1997. Let's give them all a nice round of applause. Class, you may be seated. You may be seated. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, invited guests, the principal, members of staff, parents, and the class of 1997. Our motto, Optimus Maximus, is indicative of the quality of being the best and the greatest, something we essentially have attained. We can see this from the past 3 to 4 years which we spent in high school. We've done so much to demonstrate our greatness, and I would like to point out a few examples. First, 2 years ago, we were ranked as the highest scoring 10th grade class in the district. As a result of our scores in the comprehensive test of basic skills. When we were juniors, a group of us went to Russia on a foreign exchange program for a month. Now, in our senior year, we are being regarded as the most competitive class so far. How many students can say, as our class can, that some of us communicated with the president via the internet? These are but a few logics behind our strive toward Optimus Maximus, which is the best and the greatest. As we live here today, we shall branch out and seek different roads of life. Some of us may go on to college, while others will venture into various institutions of the workforce. During this transition from high school to this next stage, which varies for each and every one of us, we all will inevitably encounter innumerable obstacles. Finally, I would like to leave you with a few thoughts. First, to be Optimus Maximus, which is the best and the greatest, we must constantly set worthy goals and strive to obtain them. In order to obtain our goals, we must be industrious. For a great writer once stated that it is not enough for us to reach our limits, but we must go further beyond them. Something ironic about life is the fact that if we refuse to accept anything but the best, we often get it. Furthermore, classmates, let us remember to always strive to keep our unique individuality. In addition, as we move on to achieve greater things in life, we must always place God first and foremost. We must strive to reach for the stars. Class of 97, we hold the future in our hands. Let us make sure it is the best and the greatest. God bless and adieu. Thank you.
come to the end of our commencement ceremony today, and I must say to you, you were a wonderful audience. I thank you for the kind of support that you provided our graduates. We ask that you remain standing as they recess. Mr. Tyler. Please remain standing and allow the graduates to exit first. Thank you. Please clear the aisles. The graduates will need the clear aisle.